Big Waz is here. He was just in Las Vegas
Yep.
for the NBA Cup, which is it still going or is it finally over? It's
I mean, I was only there for the semifinals. I got back on Sunday, but it's done. The Bucks, I heard the Bucks won and Giannis played well.
Oh, is that
That's
what
I've
happened?
been told.
All right.
Yeah.
So walk us through the Vegas piece of this and whether it's a good idea, because I really want us, the three of us, to help the NBA. I think the NBA needs help in a bunch of different ways with their scheduling and some of their idea generation. But what worked for you in Vegas and what didn't work for you?
I think I like the idea of having 2 games in one location, sort of an all-day kind of basketball extravaganza. Like, I personally enjoyed that aspect of it. The arena is, pretty much up to snuff in terms of any normal NBA arena. So, like, just the kind of logistics of how it works as a basketball venue is completely fine.
So you felt like it was like March Madness-y a little bit. Like you go, there's 2 games in a row. The house is nodding happily.
100%. I thought that was great. I think, what it reminded me of, honestly, especially early on in these games as they're sort of getting going, was being at the dunk contest and the 3-point contest in Indianapolis last year. It's like, I'm here to watch, but like it feels like nobody there is very impassioned. It's like, neutral observers, basically. But as the games get going and the result gets closer to being finalized, people got into it. It's just because there's not a lot of partisans there.
Yeah.
That's what the atmosphere felt like. It felt like, when I was watching the 3-point contest last year, until Steph and Ionescu got to the finals, there wasn't that much juice watching it. But like once it's like, whoa, Steph might lose to a WNBA player, the energy sort of got ratcheted up. And I think that's kind of what it felt like being in Vegas. It's like early on in the game, the crowd is like everybody's sort of getting settled in. And then when you notice that, like, all right, the game's in the balance, people were really into it.
House, the finals watching on TV, it reminded me not a little of the bubble.
Oh, interesting.
Where the crowd was like blacked out. I couldn't really tell if the audio was bad or if people were just in a coma. I couldn't tell how many people were there. And Giannis was just killing it. Obviously, he killed it the whole time he was there. But it just, something about it doesn't work. I'm sure it works if you're there, if you work for the league, if you're in the teams. It's like, this is great, we're all here. But I feel like there's a better idea. So where'd you stand just on the semis and the finals?
Well, there's 2 things at work. In the first place, the games were rock fights. I mean, the shooting across the board in the semis and the finals was bad. And, Oklahoma City going 5 for 32 from 3, that's not pleasing to the eye. They were all unders. If you were gambling on this and playing on the unders, you're quite happy with outcomes. But Waz really hit the key point, which is how can you get the partisans there? How can you get the fans that will show up with the passion? And this is the difference between this year's iteration and last year with the Lakers, where the Lakers had an easy way to import, a bunch of enthusiasm. True. And it was very cool because it was the first one. How can you get this is why I was shaking my head enthusiastically around the idea of this being kind of like an NCAA deal. The difference is there's big chunks of fan bases that have traveled to that place to root for their team. So it's live from the tip. How can we get that? That's the part, BS, that I want to.
And part of it for me is like, I've read and I've heard all of the hand wringing. Like, the bottom line is, if the Knicks and Warriors were in this final, there would have been an atmosphere. It would have been, a huge deal. But we didn't get that. We got the Bucks and OKC. These are not 2 national brands. These are not 2, fan bases that have massive, like, fan bases all over the country, the way the Knicks and the Lakers do. Like, if you've ever been to a Hawks game when the Knicks are playing them, it's half Knicks fans in there.
Yeah.
Same when you go to when the Lakers play in places like Phoenix and Denver. It's like a bunch of Laker fans there, right? And so, the 2 teams in there, I think, was problematic for me personally. And I'm not somebody who's ever like, giving Adam Silver his props. I think the teams played hard. The teams played like as if there were stakes. All the ancillary stuff I think needs to be figured out. But the most important thing, that the players cared and tried their best, I think that's the biggest sort of takeaway for me.
Well, that's why I care about this as a topic, because fundamentally the premise behind the tournament worked because the games were more fun to watch. So you start there. You said something that I think is a bad sign for the league and maybe ties into the stuff I did on Tuesday on my pod. Oklahoma City is the best team in the West, and they have Shea, who's the fourth best player in the world or the fifth best player in the world, depending on what your rankings are. Giannis is the second best player in the world, maybe the first best player if you want to have the Jokic-Giannis conversation. I don't want to do that here. And is playing out of his mind and is the most fun version of him that he's been in a game. So on paper, it's a great matchup, Oklahoma City, Milwaukee. And yet you laid out like, oh, it's too bad the Knicks weren't in there. It's too bad the Warriors aren't in there. Maybe that's just what the league is. Like, and even when I was going back and trying to figure out all the unicorn situations that have happened over the years, almost every time it's somebody in a big market, right? It's Magic and Bird, Boston, LA. It's Michael Jordan in Chicago.
Shaq.
It's Kobe and Shaq in LA. It's Curry and the Warriors happening in San Francisco, in the Bay Area. The only real time where we had a marquee kind of thing was LeBron in Miami and Cleveland. And LeBron almost became like his own franchise to some degree because he became so big. But House, just structurally, if we put the semifinals in New York, and either you had both games at MSG or you had one game at Barclays and the other game at MSG, and it had to be you could hustle back and forth and potentially get both. And then you had the finals 2 days later at MSG. And now we have celebrities. Now it's way easier for people to come in and out. Now there's like vibe and energy, and we're playing it in the most famous basketball arena we have. Isn't that just better?
Maybe. Because we were very, very close to having this be the Hawks against the Rockets. Like Saturday, that was a viable possibility.
New York fans would have showed up for that.
I'm not sure. Like, I don't think that Vegas is a bad choice as a venue because it delivers the promise of other entertainment. It New York is hard, especially.
Is that what we're calling it now? Entertainment? You mean like adult entertainment?
We're old enough now to talk about these things in ways that keep it light. But I don't know. New York in December, like that's a whole thing, right? Like everybody's up in New York right
that's
now.
Fair.
Christmas
you're right.
time is marvelous.
Well, but that leads to the second part of the question: is December the right time to have the NBA Cup?
I think that's a great question, honestly. I think part of the thinking is like we want to really juice and goose attention on very early NBA games, which traditionally people just didn't, gravitate towards because obviously, and like people need to understand that like no matter what the NBA Cup does or is, it's not going to be as popular as football. Like we need to let go of that as even a concept or an idea. Like Americans love football more than they do basketball, and that's okay.
A lot more.
And that's okay. I just think it's about one, the Giannis and Dame thing. I mean, the Giannis and Shea thing, and I've talked about this on group chat. I think David Stern's dream of these hyper corporatized, focus group to death athletes. They don't get busted for weed. They don't scare corporate America. They are the perfect corporate automatons. But guess what? People are not attracted to that. They're not compelling figures. Even Nike and Giannis, like selling Giannis as this cute, cuddly teddy bear, that's just a mistake. Nobody knows a single thing about Shai Gilgeous-Alexander except that he wears funny clothes.
And he does interviews with 11 of his teammates.
That's it. Nobody knows anything about these guys.
Yeah, Giannis had that clip from 2015 when the Bucks and the Bulls had that series and he got mad at Mike Dunleavy and he did the 50-foot charge and just knocked him into the first row. Like Giannis is not like just a cuddly dude. That dude has an edge that they try to pretend he doesn't. I don't know why they would pretend he doesn't.
Well, that's the angle to play up. I mean, part of the thing that you guys are talking about is the league's affirmative choice about how it's going to market this season, which is, a transition season. And you captured it, BS, on your pod earlier this week. They have chosen, from a marketing standpoint, to give glory to this exiting quickly class of superstars that have defined the league over the past 10 to 15 years at the expense of a player like SGA. Or
Tatum or Tyrese Halliburton or all
Sure.
these dudes in their 20s that they should be trying to elevate. Yeah.
Yes. Right. Exactly. What's SGA's defining moment? And we're NBA heads, but ask anybody in an NBA kind of community. Tell me SGA's, the clutch thing that's happened. Giannis, I love. There's a moment here to really go ahead and lean into where he's at, which is averaging 21.5 points per game in the paint, which hasn't been seen since Shaq in 99, 2000. Yeah. We talked about Giannis and his potential of replacing Shaq at that. Let's do that. Let's make that be Giannis. We know.
Great point.
Giannis has a ring. Let's go with Giannis.
It just feels like there's two things that they did that the more I look at it, I just don't like. One is they could have used the Olympics and even like the Netflix starting five show, just push new people, put the fucking Wagners on starting five. Let's hang out with those goofy Germans and see what their life is like. Let's try to develop new people. And then the Olympics, same thing. Should anyone over 30 even be on the Olympic team? Maybe we should it should be all younger players or in their prime players or guys trying to have a moment. Because we were in this situation in the beginning of the 2010s with Durant and Russ. And remember, it was the same conversations about, who wants to watch OKC? That's a whole bunch of young team. They should be putting LeBron on and Kobe and the Celtics and Carmelo. And meanwhile, all the real basketball people were like, I fucking love watching that OKC team, right? And then it took a while. Finally, 2014, when they played the Spurs, it felt like we had enough history with OKC and they became a thing. But I don't know why they don't push the younger guys more, why they're so beholden to the guys who have already done it. And to me, it's just about ratings, but the ratings are going down. So it's not working.
Yeah, I agree with you on the Netflix front. Look, sorry, Bill, but Jason Tatum went on that damn show and said he loves his mom, he loves his son, and he
I could have
loves
told
to
you
hoop.
he was going to be born on that.
I mean, that was just misery. In terms of selling this product and being like, these are compelling guys, interesting people, great athletes. This man went up there and said he loves his mom, his son, and he hoops really hard. It's just not going to work. And, again, and I'll say this again, their most popular young guy was who? Ja Morant.
Right. Yeah, we talked about all this.
And bottom line is, Nike and them did not get their hooks into him and turn him into a corporate product since he was 12 years old, like they have the rest of these guys. These dudes are so anodyne. They don't say or do or look. Nothing is interesting about these guys. I enjoy watching them hoop. As people, I'm completely uninspired. There's just nothing there. And, again, the guys who are willing to be a little bit out there and different don't comport with how the league sees itself as a company. Like
this guy Kyle Kuzma.
No. Hey, Kyle Kuzma's willing to say stuff in public.
That's what I mean.
like that about Kuzma. He's willing to say shit. These other guys, I don't know, man. They're just so afraid.
There's too much money at stake,
of any backlash of
they don't want to jeopardize it.
It's just not fun.
So I'm thinking with the cup, what this ties into another thing that makes me mad is they're so afraid of football to the point they take Inside the NBA, which is just the Thursday show. On Thursday nights, I watch the NBA and they're like, we have to move it away from football. Football's eating our lunch. They move it to Tuesdays. Doesn't feel the same. They have this NBA Cup. They decide the semifinals are going to be Saturday because it's the one day we can kind of get away with not going against football. And then they keep everybody there for 3 fucking days because they don't want to go against a Monday night doubleheader, which, by the way, was Minnesota against Chicago and Kirk Cousins' corpse against the shitty Raiders team. It's like, what are you afraid of that for? Maybe go try to beat them head to head. But they're doing all this stuff where they're just retreating and they're so scared of the NFL. And meanwhile, it's like, maybe maybe you should try to throw some counter punches. Like the NFL is going to beat you either way. Like even the WNBA, which we thought it was all crazy. The WNBA playoffs are going head to head against the NFL. Guess what? They did okay. They had fans. Like they had their own fan base and people watch that shit. So House, why are they so scared? I just feel like when you operate from fear, you're going to lose every single time.
See, I don't know that I subscribe to the idea that they're operating from fear, because they did stick this cup into the portion of the NFL season that is like really, we're deciding playoff outcomes now. And they are on nights of the week when there isn't necessarily NFL. Now, I don't like the fact that Inside the NBA is on Tuesday. And the Amazon games are fine, but none of that Thursday night football is must-see TV for me. Hold your spot. But here's the real problem, and they're never going to do this. The stupid season shouldn't start until Christmas. And the NBA Cup in February would be effing magnificent, because football is diminishing starting on, Christmas Day, basically. We're getting less and less games. The playoffs start. And during the week, you have full run to go do whatever you want. So taking the whole thing and starting in Christmas time, New Year's, and then let's take over the season as football goes away. That's what makes the most sense.
Yeah, you're talking 70-game schedule. Instead of starting near the end of October, you're starting maybe like third week in November. You're easing into it, and then you really kick into gear on Christmas. Because one of the things I was thinking with the Cup was, you made the point earlier, the games are all really fun. The courts are fun. But we only had 4 games in this super complicated scoring system. Trying to lead to, and then these 4 teams made it, and this team didn't make it because their point differential was plus 36. How about this? Have more fucking games. Like, instead of 4 NBA Cups, let's have 6. Let's have 7. Let's get it so that it goes all the way through, and then we get to January, and then the week to do it, in my opinion, there's that week between the conference title game and the Super Bowl. It's a dead week. Nothing's happening. Football has finally calmed down, basically starting Sunday night, and just try to own that week, right? You basically have a clean slate. You're going against nothing. You're not going against college football. You're not going against anything, and make that the signature week. They're going the opposite way. Not only did they wrap up all this stuff, but the trade deadline is on the Thursday of Super Bowl week. That's another one I don't get. The trade deadline is one of the most fun days of the season. You're just burying it in the Super Bowl when all your media members, all your corporate, everybody is just talking football. So Waz, to me, this is just easy structural stuff I don't get.
Yeah, the thing about more cup games, it will make it so that it makes it easier for the best teams to actually play in the further rounds to actually advance. And so you probably wouldn't get an Atlanta in there, although I love watching Atlanta.
Would you? Because maybe Atlanta is one of the best teams in the East, Waz. Maybe you would get Atlanta.
Hey, that's fair. Again, I do think, fixing the window that they put it in. But to me, it's a promotion issue. Like, Adam Silver needs to get his Don King hat on. Like, this guy is just not a promoter. He does not know. They just don't know. And maybe it's the networks. I don't know. You know what I mean? They don't know how to eventize these products. And that, to me, is the main issue. People don't see these things as essential viewing. They know the season is 82 games long. They know that effectively a loss in January is just like, ho-hum, who cares? Every single game doesn't matter. And the league just needs to be better, more effective at promoting their product, getting people to feel like this is essential. Because the idea that people aren't interested in the NBA, I think is BS. I think plenty of people are still interested. Obviously, the highlights, the recaps, they do numbers online. People still want to know about the results and all of that stuff. It's just the NBA needs to impress upon people that these games are worthy of their time, worthy of their commitment.
Well, House, I mean, we go so far back. We remember when USA and ESPN started showing cable games, right? And we were like, oh,
it was amazing.
All the teams. Oh my God, that's what a Clippers arena looks like. You had no idea. And then the Sports Center highlights are taking off at the same time. And we were just so starved for any sort of NBA action. Now it's flipped the other way where, it's like having the most full fridge possible. I was telling somebody the other day, I feel like I watch as much basketball as I ever did, but I watch it completely differently now. I don't care if I see the ESPN game on Wednesday night as it's happening. But what I do is I try to watch as many fourth quarters as I can. Or if I'll look at the game recap and it'll be like, oh, Houston had a 37-10 run in the second quarter on Wemby. I'm like, all right, I'm going to watch that. And I'll just queue it up. And it's so much more on demand. And I don't feel like that reflects in the ratings. So when they say the ratings are down, I'm not positive I believe it. I do think that they have a star issue, which I talked about Tuesday. They don't House and I didn't miss Michael Jordan in the 90s when he played a playoff game. It was non-negotiable. You didn't miss Jordan in the playoffs, period, unless you had a substantial event that superseded it. Otherwise, you watch Jordan. They don't have a guy like that now.
Yeah, I mean, it's LeBron. It's supposed to be LeBron, except for
where
it's
LeBron at 40. Come on,
it's not LeBron at 40.
22. It's not really Curry either.
That's right. But those are the guys on television. Look at the schedule. Look at the ABC schedule. I think, the hard thing is nobody sits down and watches basketball games. You don't sit down like, oh, the game's about, let me go get in my chair, right? It's not football. And, using linear TV ratings as a measuring stick for overall success is clearly outmoded, outdated, makes no sense whatsoever. The fact that the league signed an 11-year, $76 billion deal means that those folks who are paying that money have ideas about how to capture eyeballs in the interest of those consumers to push their stuff that makes sense to them. And they don't think that people are going to come sit down in their chairs and watch a goddamn basketball game in February from the beginning of the game to the end of the game. It's all of the ways that we watch it. It's what you and Derek Thompson talked about. People consume the hell out of basketball, but they don't consume it by sitting in a chair and watching it. So it's a little bit of a false description, to a false assessment to say, look, the ratings are down.
Well, Waz watches every Hawks game, so he's probably
I kind of do at this point. It's kind of
he's got
sick,
a Dyson
actually.
Daniels bedspread.
So I'm also like a bit of a radical thinker on the schedule and stuff. One, I don't even think 70 is enough of a cut. I think it should be literally round robin. You play each team one time at home, one time away, 2 times a week.
So 60. So when we get expansion, it's like a 62 game schedule. That's it.
1-1.
So I sign up for that. Everyone I've ever mentioned that who's in any sort of decision making, ownership, they're all like, don't even talk about that on a podcast. It will never, ever happen. It's too much money. There's no way. And it's like, you guys already made all this money.
That's the point. Like, all of these owners who were told are the most visionary business people ever because they ran some hedge fund, blah, 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 blah. They can't figure out how this extra shortfall in money that they got from this big ass 11-year contract from all of these networks, as House mentioned, how reducing inventory and making it more scarce, they can't figure out a way to monetize that. I find that to be just baffling.
Well, it does two things. But it does the competitiveness of the games. Just there's more urgency because whatever
goes well.
It also makes the end of the regular season more interesting because if you have like a situation Philly's in now, you might not even make the playoffs. So like every game matters starting game 20,
100%. And also I'm a bit radical on League Pass. I think we should abolish it.
This is my favorite Waz take. Get rid of.
I haven't heard this.
Yeah,
look,
this
if
is
you
great.
have to watch the NBA for work, if people say, "Oh, that's self-serving for you, Waz," whatever. I'm just saying, if people have to watch it for work, all right, we'll give you League Pass. If you want access to it, we're charging you a crazy premium which to me, that means like whenever people want to watch the NBA, they got to watch it with the league's partners. I don't see what's so bad about that as an idea. Because again, I grew up in a context of no league pass and was completely fine with Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday and NBA on NBC. Like, I don't know. Like I said,
so you're saying like national games, you get your own team. Like if you live like House in Washington, he gets to still watch the Wizards. And then maybe
you get
league
your
pass,
own team in your market. Yeah, just like how the Jets and Giants got forced down my throat when I was living in New York.
But maybe you get to pick like 3 other teams. And then if you want the whole package, it's like $1,000. And it's just like
crazy
completely prohibitive. There's some idea there to make it scarce. And I'm not against that, House. Or maybe they're just, that's it. You get your own team. You can pick 3 other league pass teams. Other than that,
no,
just
we're not giving
them
them 3 other teams.
So that's it. You're going hardcore.
You watch your local team and you watch your national team. Okay? There's 2 days a week that NBA games are
Sergeant
on.
He's laying down the law.
That's it. And also, they do need to do something about the bootlegs. I was talking to somebody who works in this sort of area in terms of how young people consume sports, specifically the NBA. Like, how it was explained to me, it's like how people of my age viewed Napster, where it's just like, once we found Napster and LimeWire and all this other stuff, we literally stopped believing in the concept that we would go to Sam Goody and buy a CD. It's like, no, I get this for free. I'm not paying for it. I don't have a ESPN subscription. I damn sure don't got Warner Discovery. I am just pilfering an illegal stream. They need to find something to do about that. And I know I can hear people right now saying, how many people could possibly be streaming stuff this way? I'm telling you, it's a sizable amount of folks.
I think he's right. I remember we did the Juice World doc for HBO and Max, and it was just like it just got pirated out of control. And that was the first time I was like, oh wow, this still was happening on like a major level. But you're right. Especially as we head to this next era where you're going to need Amazon, you're going to need Peacock, you're going to need cable to get ESPN or whatever the ESPN package is. And you'll have to pay for the league pass stuff too. I mean, it's our job, so we get all this stuff. But I've said it 1,100 times. The schedule is the number one way to fix this, and they won't.
With a bullet.
They just won't. It would make it more special. The guys would be playing. They'd be healthier. They wouldn't. Even also, what they did recently with this weird bye week where there were no games and stuff, it actually made me miss the NBA. I was like, last night, where the fuck is the NBA?
Dude, and Doc said this in the pregame availability. He said one of the cooler things about this is we had time to prepare for our opponent, almost like a playoff game. Again, everything gets better when we're not stuffing all of these freaking games together, playing 3 games in 5 nights in 3 cities.
Yeah.
Like, this is a no-brainer schedule. It's a no-brainer. Everything would be better with less games. Everybody
so maybe they'll
get
House. Maybe they'll give some of the money back. 76 million. Maybe it'd be 60.
I mean, the owners. This is the issue, right? And I don't have a good solution for it. It's easy for us to talk about less games. There's the 41 home games for places where people actually go to the games, not here in Washington, but in places, cities where the team is relevant. That's real money. That's revenue in. That's people walking into the door, buying food, buying merch, populating the surrounding restaurants and bars and stuff. It's an ecosystem that matters. And how do you walk away from that? Where's the replacement?
You're right. It's beyond the franchise. There's Sportico did this thing in the franchise values, which I always think are corny because there's no real way to know. It only takes one dumb person to be like, here's 11 billion. But they had the pie chart of how the Celtics, I think it was Sportico, maybe it was somebody else. They had a pie chart of all the Celtics revenue because they don't own their own arena. And they had it earmarked for the Celtics making $102 million from the playoffs.
Wow.
Assuming they made, got to like 4 rounds. And you could see, it was like, Jesus Christ, that's a crazy amount of money. But, that's part of why some of these bigger market teams, they go all in on luxury tax because they feel like it's almost like a bet. Can we make that money back the longer the rounds go? If if they put me in charge, I would at least go to 70 games. I mean, you could talk me into the 60 would be even better, 62, but they won't. This is something Steve Kerr at one point, I think he like hand wrote a long letter to Adam Silver, like in the last year, like it was like the 1840s. Like Dear Adam, it is Steve Kerr. I'm here on the outskirts of Wyoming, writing you a letter with a feather and a pen. But he wrote a letter, just basically begging him to cut the schedule down. And I remember talking to Doc about this last year when he got back in and he was trying to take over the Bucks, and he was just like, we just don't practice. I just got here with our staff's changed.
His Doc's teams just don't practice generally.
He's like, we just don't get to practice, and I don't get to play as much golf. No, but he was saying, and this is something any coach I've ever talked to, they always talk about this. There's these schedule bumps where you just can't work on anything, and you end up like in a hotel conference room in some banquet room, running through like how you're gonna do, how you're gonna charge the guy with the ball and shit like that. So I don't know. All right, so short term, Vegas next year for this or no, Waz?
I'm fine with Vegas, but they need to figure out a mechanism by which they can get the fans of the actual teams in those buildings. I don't know. I haven't really put too much thought as to how they would go about doing this. I'm biased like you guys. I love Vegas, so I think it's a great place to host something like this past weekend. It was also the freaking rodeo championships. Shania Twain had a concert. There were cowboy hats everywhere.
Entertainment.
It's just a great place to host an event.
So maybe the answer, if they strung it out to 6 games instead of 4, they moved it to January, and this is going to be a direct contradiction of what I said about not being wusses about going against football, but you target that week between the conference championship and the Super Bowl, which we know is open every week. We know when it is. So this year it would be February 2nd.
Yeah, and
Super Bowl's February 9th.
We could make the tweak be, if we're going to spread it out, we can make the tweak be the semis end up being home arenas, and then the final, you make it not only do you make it, the destination or whatever it is, there's enough space. Because I don't know why the semis and the finals have to be so freaking close to each other. Like they don't do that in the Champions League.
How about Tuesdays, the quarterfinals? Then we go to Vegas Friday, Sunday, the week before the Super Bowl. And it's just Friday night doubleheader. Sunday's the final. Everyone just goes to Vegas one weekend. You're in Thursday or Friday morning. You're out Monday.
Yeah.
You're not going against football at all. You have 6 games instead of 4 to determine exactly, you're going to get the right order probably of the teams in some form. You might have one outlier. And the only thing we would know for sure is that the Washington Wizards won't be there.
Well, the reason that's great is because the buildup to it is occurring in the month of diminishing football. We're not having 16 games on Sunday.
Two more in January after Christmas that lead up to the quarterfinals.
Yeah. And in terms of fans, like, how much would it cost to just, here's 5,000 tickets. If your team makes it, we're going to give we have a 5,000 free tickets. Please take the ticket and go. I mean, you're not going to pay for people to go, but where you at least have access to the arena, it can't really be,
how about this?
Cost
maybe Emirates Airlines could fucking get private jets for everybody.
They've got the money.
Big planes. Fly out the fans. Yeah, the PJs for the fans.
Oh, the party plane.
The money.
Okay, all right, OKC party plane.
Did we land on this for a fix? 6 instead of 4. Target that weekend before the Super Bowl weekend, and maybe have the trade deadline right after on like the Tuesday.
I mean, here's the thing: the trade deadline sucks now. They ruined it. The collective bargaining agreement.
They aproned it.
There is no trade deadline that's relevant anymore.
Way, again, I feel like I'm always bashing Adam Silver. Like, the guy did a good job. He went and enriched the players and the owners with this new TV deal.
He did.
He is an absolute magnet for corporate money. Like, they invented the NBA Cup. The next year, we got the Emirates. The Emiratis are paying for it. He is a master at that. But this whole thing about we want to be like football and have parity. And so let's make it impossible for good teams to stack talent. And trade's just an impossibility now. This was a mistake, guys. It was a mistake.
The Nuggets can't even trade for Jimmy Butler, who would probably be dying to go there. And they can't do it with the fucking apron. It's like, well, Zeke Naji has to be in it. And please don't look at Michael Porter's back x-rays. And we have no picks. Yeah, it's really sad. All right, Waz, great to see you. Who's winning the title, by the way? Uh-oh.
I picked the Dallas Mavericks before the season. I don't know if I've unleashed this take on you. I saw the Celtics as the 2016 Warriors, coming off a championship, smoking everybody all regular season, faced the Cavs in the finals the year before, just like the Mavericks. I think the Mavericks and the Celtics are going to rematch in the finals, and Luka Doncic, like LeBron before him, is going to find a way to win his first NBA championship, y'all.
What do you think of that?
I love it. It's incredible. I think the Celtics are a good way to give. No, I mean, as a guy who was an early embracer of that Dallas Mavericks, they really changed the entire trajectory of their franchise at the trade deadline last year. Speaking of trades not mattering anymore, Daniel Gafford and PJ Washington, and that's a final. And then they did an incredible job in the offseason building up around those guys and getting rid of some pieces that didn't
12-2 in their last 14, Bill.
I think, unfortunately for them, I think OKC might be their kryptonite team. That's the one team that just too much speed, athleticism. I guess what they have going for them is just Jalen Williams in any game that means anything.
Oh,
I need to see the first SGA moment.
They're gonna be in your mentions, Bill. Oh, Lord have mercy.
Just have one awesome game when there's a real spotlight on. Come on, we all
Who
believe in you,
about?
Jalen Williams. Jalen Williams.
Yeah, right.
No, he had another one. He stunk in the Dallas series last year. He stunk in the second NBA. I have a lot of Jalen Williams stock. I'd like for him to come through. I mean, the other reason they lost, they just couldn't hit a three, which is now half of the story of the league. You think he's gonna be all right?
Yeah.
I have OKC, Dallas. I still feel like I want to see what happens with the Butler trade because Butler's clearly this is happening soon.
Mm-hmm.
And if Houston got him without changing too much what I like about them, I'm intrigued by them too. Can you imagine Ime and Jimmy Butler?
Oh my
how fucking alpha that team's going to be if they keep doing Brooks? Like they're like a biker gang.
It's exciting. I love that. I mean, who knows what the outcome would be this season's playoffs, but it would be
They're more
TV.
Interesting.
Yes,
and Ime looked at LeBron and called him a bitch and asked him what he was going to do. That happened last year. Put him and Jimmy Butler. I just think that's happening imminently. So we'll see where he goes.